All right, next up is a very special presentation on the future of AbaData, where we're going next, what's coming soon, and how we're going to continue to support your operations into the future. Presenting today is someone who has been part of AbaData's story from the very beginning, Kurtis Poettcker. Is the founder and chief technology officer of AbaData and the original visionary behind the platform. He founded AbaData back in 2003, long before energy tech was a buzzword, with a simple but powerful idea to bring geospatial intelligence, mapping, and data transparency to Canada's energy industry. Over the past 2 decades, Kurtis has led the evolution of AbaData from its early days as a land mapping application to where it is today, a world-class, comprehensive, cloud-based operations ecosystem for the energy industry. As CTO, he continues to drive the product vision and technological innovation that defines AbaData, which includes the company's software architecture, the expansion of product suite, and the integration of AI and data science. Join him and Jason for the roadmap discussion. Please join me in welcoming these two excellent gentlemen to the stage.
Okay. Apparently our lawyers say we have to have this safe harbor statement, but it's forward-looking, so we're going to try to get everything done this year.
This year?
Oh, this year, next year, within the next 12 months. So really, I've been involved with AbaData for a little bit more than 3 years now, and Kurtis, developed such an amazing company. I feel fortunate to be involved with AbaData. We're really looking at what happens next with AbaData, and we see our database, the AbaData database, and mapping being such a valuable tool, and it's a great foundation for many other products that we've envisioned. Of course, we have our mobile apps in the field to collect data. We have pipeline integrity tools. And really, we've heard from a lot of our customers that they don't want yet another login. And they're tired of going to 10 different software providers where the data is siloed in different, inside different companies, and none of the providers work well together. And so we're looking to have more of those solutions inside AbaData. And we're going to continue developing out great software. We kind of look at this as AbaData OS, where we can help you run your entire infrastructure, your different pieces of software inside the company, and on different platforms too, of course, iPhone, Android, Windows, whatever have you. We're going to be there supporting that. And to us, it all comes back to the people. And so we actually have a really stringent hiring process. And when I got involved, we had 6 people at AbaData. We've grown to more than 55. These are the actual people that work with. I'm sure you've met many of them today. We're really picky when we interview people. And I believe that one amazing developer is worth 5 not so great developers, software developers. And I guess it expands beyond software developers, just people in general. There's a difference between high quality people and low quality people, and even medium quality people. We look for A players to join our team. So we have one of the largest teams, but also every single one of them is very talented. And and I'm sure lots of you guys have seen with other software providers in the industry, they keep promising things and things never happen. There's a few reasons for that. A, they don't have the quality people that they should at the company, but also a lot of these companies are really small too. They have a small development team, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 developers maximum. We probably have more software developers than our competition combined. But we're looking to do some really cool and innovative things and solve more problems for our customers. But it all comes down to the people. And when I look to hire people, we try to hire people, I do, at least that are smarter than me in a lot of different ways. So we look for the brightest and the best.
I'll just retract some of those statements that Chris made a little earlier. I had very, very little to do with the work that you all use every day inside of AbaData. And just furthering on to Jason's comments about the people, it's the people that are, we can't even afford chairs for them, they're standing at the back, but the people that are around this room wearing the black name tags, they're the ones that are putting their heart and soul into this product and making it what it is. And Jill's probably going to be really mad at me, but I'll just call her out because I got called out. Jill's at the back there in the white. She can give a wave maybe. There she is. So Jill, there we go. Jill was the first developer to work on AbaData, and yeah, has continued to be with us, thankfully, and is even now moving to Calgary, which who could imagine a worse fate? But we're really happy to have her, and she's definitely a key part of what we do here. So if I was going to have to take it, I was going to give it as well. So that's sort of that's what I'm talking about there. Moving on to, sorry, I won't step too far back, to the roadmap. So when we look forward, we look at what are our customers asking for, what's the industry sort of looking for, and what direction is tech in general heading, and we try and lay out a roadmap that we can satisfy all three of those components with the resources that we have. And so I'll just touch on really quickly where we're headed, at least on paper. Execution is always a different thing, which is why we do the safe harbor statement at the start. But it all comes down and starts with maps. That's where we started, and there's definitely a lot of focus going into just that core AbaData Maps product that as was mentioned, Jason mentioned earlier, 30,000 people use on a regular basis. So a lot of work going in, things like adding data sets. I've been in several of the sessions today, and there's been a lot of requests for different layers that have come up, and it's really important to us that we get that information and we continue to enhance the product with it. We've talked probably enough about BC pipelines. You understand what that's all about. We're also going to be deploying that technology that we developed to both Alberta and Saskatchewan to do a bit of a rectification of existing regulator graphics in those provinces as well. And then the support hub is going to be a large focus of our support team going forward. It's now incorporated into AbaData and will continue to be enhanced with new training material, et cetera, et cetera. Moving on to a supplementary product, our Field Ops product. Some of you attended the Uplink session. That's an acquisition we made last year. We're going to continue to go down the road of integrating that data inside of the core AbaData program. We're also developing out a Windows client, so a native Windows client to store your offline data within Field Ops. Will function very similar to the iOS and Android one, giving us three total streams of code, all natively built to support the devices that you're using. And we're well into the works of an enhanced dashboard. So for those of you who are Field Ops customers, you'll see a large improvement coming into the dashboard experience there. Moving on to a bit of a side project, or product, sorry, not project, that will stand along with Field Ops, and that's what we're calling the scheduler. It probably will have a different name as we build it out. But really it's about developing a tool to allow you to schedule out those preventative maintenance tasks that are happening inside of Field Ops. Along with that, it's, doing things like dispatching, the whole service request lifecycle, truck ticketing lifecycle as well is going to be built in, and we're exploring opportunities for route optimization and really minimizing the amount of time that the operators are spent on the road, which is obviously a large cost and also a safety hazard. So trying to make those trips as efficient as possible. We've heard today about our pipeline integrity tools, Triage, and now Hoodoo, which has come under the AbaData umbrella recently. And we're going to be dedicating a lot of resources to combining those two products into an industry-leading pipeline integrity tool that will live natively inside of AbaData and give you access to advanced corrosion preventing and hazard identifications inside of the application. Things like advanced real-time alerting, so if we're tied into, for instance, production systems, accounting systems, that kind of we're getting daily data, we're able to run those assessments on a daily basis and give you alerts on what's happening inside your systems. And finally, fully integrating the field ops tool so that both field ops and integrity work hand in hand, so the data you're collecting in one impacts the other, and the assessments that are generated in one drive the scheduling in the other. So look for that to come shortly as well. Equipment management, a tool that has been inside of AbaData for several years. I don't know the exact time, probably 2005 is when we started. Essentially, for those of you who aren't familiar, it's a pressure equipment module that lives inside of AbaData. It's going to be getting a large upgrade as well. We're currently have a team of 4 dedicated to this product. So we're deploying a role matrix to allow for jobs, MOCs, NCRs to be assigned to roles as opposed to people. And when people cycle through those roles, all of those changes will happen seamlessly. We also have a large initiative to improve the performance of field ops, or equipment management, sorry, as well as complete some UI optimization. So there's some dated, admittedly, features inside of equipment management, and we'll be sort of bringing those up to speed. And finally, again, integrating with that field ops. So now you can do those inspections on that pressure equipment from your mobile phone in the field and have it reflected inside of the dashboard. Last, you've heard us talk a lot about, I think, AI today, and it's not just here, it's everywhere that you go. We have a few projects on the AI team's plate. Things like improving our AbaChata, which is sort of our little pet name for the automated help system inside. And you won't be able to just ask it questions, you'll be able to have it perform tasks for you inside of AbaData. I think we demoed a little bit of the natural language reporting. That's also going to be enhanced to provide visual reports, things like graphs and trending and that kind of thing, all generated from natural language instead of having to generate it through checkboxes and selecting. Data pattern analysis, so we're collecting all this data about field operations, be it corrosion or spraying or operations. Now, what do we do with that? It's a shame to just store it for regulatory purposes. There's real information there that you can use to improve the way your company is performing, and it's about building the models to identify those areas for improvement, and that's a large focus of what will be coming up there as well. And then finally, again, equipment management will not be spared from the AI paintbrush either, and we'll start looking at making improved decisions based on the data being stored in there. Last slide here is probably, I think, the most exciting one, and also the one where we require some participation from the people that are here. AbaData has always been user-driven. Right from the start, we were line locators. We didn't know a whole lot about field operations or corrosion management or weed management, all of those things. All that information and functionality came from our user base. And we're looking to sort of formalize that in a going forward method by the creation of product-specific advisory groups. So we're looking for people to sort of raise their hands and say, I'm interested in participating in the future of this product. I have, in this room alone, we probably have, thousands of years of experience, I would imagine, cumulative. And if we can put some of that to work to sort of shape the product, the future of our products, we're all going to be the better for it. So if that sparks any little bit of interest in anybody in the room today, our support team is at the front desk. They're one of the strengths of the company, and feel free to reach out to them and just express your interest. We have account managers that are putting these teams together now, so we'll be looking for participants to take place in that. Great. I think that's all for me, and we didn't really talk through the transition into the panel, but just before we jump into the panel, I just wanted to personally thank everybody for coming. Yeah, it's the first one we've ever done. Appreciate all of your patience as we sort of have learned through this process on how to do a conference like this, and we just hope that you stick with us for another year, and we'll make a lot of improvements in the experience and deliver a much stronger experience next year. So yeah, I know we've got someone coming up to introduce, probably Chris is my guess. Yeah, Chris is going to come up, introduce the panel, and we'll get started with that.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks a lot, Kurtis. So yes, in a few short minutes, we're going to begin our much anticipated panel discussion around AI and digitization. But first, if I could welcome our moderator to the stage. Today's moderator, ladies and gentlemen, is none other than Doug Schweitzer. Doug has worn many hats in his time, but today is a lawyer, a tech entrepreneur, and a community champion. Doug is joined on stage today by Gary Krushell, who is a director of digital operations at Baker Hughes, Simon Rivard, who is the vice president of production at Ember Resources, and the one and only Kurtis Poettcker, founder, CTO of AbaData, and the nicest guy in the room. Let's give our panelists a warm welcome.
Perfect. So I recognize that we are the last panel of the day, and that some folks may have been up last night watching a Blue Jays game. So we appreciate, we'll try and make this as interesting and engaging as we can. I mean, lots of interesting discussions to be had around AI, the implementation of AI tools. Lots has been learned over the last couple of years. Just a bit of background on myself. So yeah, I was a former elected official. I was a partner at a large international law firm before my time in government. And I'm also now a tech founder. So we've learned a lot as it relates to the regulatory process of learning how to build big infrastructure in Canada. How do we bring innovation to that world? That's what Ultimari is all about. And I gotta say, it's gonna be really interesting to hear the insights of this panel around lessons learned for AI. How do we deploy this into smaller companies? How do we look at the opportunities that are ahead? What is the roadmap for the different companies that they're involved in? So lots to get through here today, but I'm going to let each of the panelists introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves and what they've been working on, starting with Simon.
Thank you. Simon Rivard. I'm very impressed with everybody's pronunciation of my name, my French name, and I haven't skipped to it. I work at Ember Resources. My title is VP of Production. I find my job entails a lot of work management, asset management, production optimization, the safety side, so quite a few different topics. Reserves is now something I deal with as well. And really solving all those problems, it just comes down to digitization and data management. The journey really started with us at a company called Cordero Energy, where our production was managed through a spreadsheet every minute, and it was a nightmare. So killed off that spreadsheet with a proper analytics tool and data management. Ember bought Cordero and had all these excellent databases for reserves and accounting and land systems as well. And we were able to try to integrate those all together. Meanwhile, companies were shedding their CDM assets in the 2013 to 2015 or so. And Ember was able to, we were a CDM-focused company and picked up a lot of those assets. So our digitization journey started before we were big, before we really needed it. And then we grew to a 10,000 well company. We're now the fourth largest company by well count in Alberta. And digitization is a big part of what we do every day.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Gary Krushell. Currently I hold the role of Director of Digital Operations for Baker Hughes for a product called the SEBA. It is a full field optimization platform for production management, data analytics, reservoir characterization, modeling, those kind of things right across the globe with Baker Hughes. Spent about 31 years now in the industry, all the way from field operations, technology, well servicing, artificial lift, and then roughly the last 15, 16 years in the integrated operations platform, deploying operation centers, and really trying to create a platform for what I'm going to call a fit-for-purpose integrated operation, and the kind of the forefront of an intelligent operation. So I really, and if you saw my presentation earlier today, I really press upon it. I'll talk about it today: people, process, and then technology. And that's really the foundation that I've worked towards in all of the initiatives I've been part of. It's exciting and very rewarding.
And I think Kurtis has introduced himself a few times properly today, but Kurtis, over to you for a moment.
One more, maybe? Was this on? Yeah. I'm Kurtis, CTO of AbaData. That's probably enough said.
So, I mean, we're going to start with a little bit of a softball. Digitalization in the energy industry. What does it mean today? Like, we know what it meant, before we were transitioning from spreadsheets to something more robust, but what does it mean today in an AI world? Maybe we'll start with you, Simone.
In my mind, it means you have all the answers essentially at your fingertips, and the ability to be incredibly nimble whenever something new comes your way. I don't feel overwhelmed by any problems that are presented if you have good digital data at your fingertips. My examples for that would be if you go back 5 years, emissions became a big thing. If you have good emission data, they're easy problems to solve. 3 years ago, liability became a big thing. Again, quite easy to solve if you've got good data at your fingertips. And so that's where I see it just continuing to go. Whenever you have a problem or something new come your way, you just have it at your fingertips at all times.
It's such a broad brush. I think everybody gets branded with digital transformation, and the fact is every operator, every organization is at a different point in the journey, and you really have to take a step back and define that for yourself, and then really look at where are your gaps, where are your breaks, and what is the methodology based on best practices and lessons learned for that matter to build your foundation and your framework. And that gets down to do you have the right skill sets? Do you have a roadmap and a journey? Have you thought about, as was mentioned this morning, that end state and then reverse engineering? Have you gone through those exercises? That's really, really valuable to assess where you're at.
Yeah, I appreciate the word you use, digitalization, as opposed to digitization. And I think there's a massive difference between those two. I think the digitization trend, 10 years ago was simply taking what was on paper and making it digital paper. And really, there's not a lot of value in doing that, other than easy retrieval of data, maybe. I think when you really talk about digitalization and in today's terms, the value becomes not just storing the data electronically, but doing something with that data that is stored electronically and applying intelligence to it. Now in the world of AI, and if everybody's talking about that, let's talk about it. But you're able to apply those models to that data and start looking for patterns and things that a human couldn't pick out of it. So I think if you're talking today's world, that's sort of what's required. And
kind of building on the theme of digitalization, like when someone on your team comes to you and says, I have this new idea, or here's something that I think we should be looking at, what are the flags you say, hey, this person's thought this through, hey, we need to lean into this, versus red flags here, situation, this needs to be deep sixed. How do I, maybe it's even the executive above me that's bringing this idea to me, how do I cautiously walk them out the door, make them feel good, and move on? What are the good markers and bad markers when someone brings a digitalization strategy to you as an idea?
For me, it's the business need or the end game, the win that you get at the end of it. Because you can digitize anything, but if there's no end game or end efficiency that you are hyper focused on, it's not it. It's just a waste of time. So looking for if there's no if nobody's going to take on a champion of the idea, then it's probably time to move on. That's a red flag.
I echo that. It really comes down to what's the use case? How does that use case compare to all the 100 other use cases that have been brought to the table in the last week? Because this is the exciting buzzword right now. And then I would look at, from an opportunity perspective, how does that rank objectively and also look at it from a economy of scale perspective. Is there an off-the-shelf solution? Is it something we can do pragmatically internally? And then you also have to assess there's a finite level of resources. So how can you do this adequately or in a timely manner against all the other initiatives that are on the table right now?
And I got to think, Kurtis, you got some big idea people at AbaData, and you're the one that probably has the buck stops with you. Probably have to zoom on some of those decisions. How do you? What's your filter look like?
Yeah, I think it underscores the importance of having a digital strategy for your company. If you have nothing to fall back on, it's very easy to fall for a lot of those get-rich-quick schemes that people bring up. And I'm not talking about our staff, of course, but other staff.
Good catch.
But I think it has to be, the value has to be demonstrated. Without it, why are we doing this exercise? Just like everyone else has said.
I got to say, I'm probably guilty on the other side. I go to my CTO on a daily basis. What if we can do this? How do we actually do this? And he's got a very delicate way of saying, how about we talk about that at the next meeting, and we'll roadmap and all that fun stuff. So I appreciate those insights. Next topic we're going to go on as well is we see with particularly in the energy industry, there's large technology implementation work that happens. I used to work at Deloitte, and there's a whole team of people that would help with an SAP implementation or a ServiceNow implementation. A lot of people, a lot of human hours go into that work. And as we look at the opportunities for AI and the different projects that you guys are working on, how do we make sure we avoid basically creating the same inefficiencies that are there right now with an SAP implementation that may have been done and repeating those same mistakes, but just using AI to repeat the same mistakes? I don't know, Kurtis, you're nodding vigorously. Let me start with you on that one.
Yeah, it's not just the implementation, it's the ongoing maintenance that all of those large softwares require. Countless hours of contractors' time going into supporting those. It's definitely a risk. AI is a complex beast. It's illustrated some real incredible results, and you can read a lot of papers and research about the value that's coming from it. But it doesn't come for free, and so I think again a proper digital strategy that outlines steps A through to the destination will really help, and you just have to consider long-term life cycle of whatever you onboard.
Definitely not going to try and fix the SAP deployments in this space. I don't know if that's a fixable item at this moment, but it does get down to the data strategy, as Kurtis mentioned, and then really looking at, again, I'll go back to the use case. What is the use case? What is the application that this is going to try to solve to help us become more intelligent? And really working towards mapping that out, and then also ensuring that you don't try and boil the ocean. Don't try and do too much all at once. That's typically how a larger initiative that, from a roadmap perspective, is quite large and significant and has a wide array. Starting off with a small subset or a phased approach will likely ensure that you can course correct along the way a lot more from a flexible and scalability perspective. And then you'll also see continuous improvement cycles and lessons learned coming through rather than trying to front-end load it, deploy it, and then realize you made a whole bunch of mistakes at the end that you may not be able to unwind. And so kind of almost like a modular deployment would be my recommendation.
I think it comes back to your digital strategy as well. If you need to get that buy-in from everybody, especially that end user, the person collecting the data, and not to focus on what efficiencies they get out of it. If you're making it more difficult for that person, you're not going to have a successful project at the end. So you really got to think that through from start to finish. If it's more difficult for that person, really explain why it's more difficult and what you're getting at the very end that ultimately improves the company in some way, shape, or form. And if it doesn't improve the company, just stop immediately and move on to something different.
This is really interesting. So the next topic we're going to talk about as well is going to be as we focus on AI projects, what should the different size of entities be trying to tackle themselves or looking to service providers to provide an off-the-shelf solution for? Because if people remember 2 years ago, ChatGPT hype cycle was massive. you have this wave of like, this is going to solve every problem. All we have to do is do a Copilot implementation, and there's going to be this huge value proposition unlocked. And here we are a couple years later, and the terminology that people like to use is work slop. You get a huge volume of output, created by generative AI. It's not creating a huge amount of value. I talked to my legal friends, and each one of their clients shows up having drafted their own contract, and then it takes them more time to unwind the work that's been done. So the value proposition isn't necessarily there. But talking to my friends in the tech world, they're really focused on kind of verticalized, very specific use cases. Like, I think we're past the hype. Now we're into what they call the valley of despair, and we've got to work our way out of it by truly delivering on what AI can create. So maybe I just kind of want to share, so what have been some of the, wins and failures over the last couple of years as you've been using some AI tools, and also use that maybe as a lessons learned for kind of some of the smaller, medium-sized companies in particular that may not have the development budgets of a large Suncor or something like that. So that's kind of the theme of the day. So maybe just turn it over to you guys to figure out what have been some wins and losses and learnings over the last couple of years in the AI space.
Well, at Emory, we haven't done a lot of pure AI work. I'd throw one loss into it where an employee was dabbling in it, and the question was, who's asking for this? And nobody was. So had no champion, looked like some really neat things. It was very similar to a company that I listened to a conference on earlier this year, where they basically were able to communicate with their land documents through a chatbot. In their case, it was tangible and real, and it was amazing. But we didn't have that champion at Denver asking for it, so it didn't go anywhere. So I put that in the big loss. Big win is more on the visualization side or just a data management side. I find if you got your company, get that expertise in-house for data modeling, data management, and then outsource your data collection to the experts like AbaData. Let them do their job really well, but you can customize it internally very easily with all the tools. Power BI comes to mind as one of them, so that you can have your own solutions built internally and optimized. So I would say that's our biggest win, is having our custom solutions in-house, but outsourcing the collection of that data to other companies.
I'll speak to, so as far as the lessons learned, I'll speak to false starts. I think that's been the biggest key. And to be honest, you mentioned it earlier, Kurtis, around the last 3 years has been a massive evolution in agentic AI and machine learning. You're starting to see some real, as you mentioned, Simone, some tangible outcomes. Prior to that, it was truly a false start, and I think that left a bad taste for a lot of folks. And so how do you mitigate that? You don't want to impede creativity. This is meant to elicit creativity and ideas, but how you deploy it to the masses, there should be some kind of stage gate process or some kind of procedural process that says, yes, be creative, but let's prove it out before we actually start to speak to it or advertise that there's something here, so you're not having to either do damage control to regain confidence, and it's a viable product that actually is going to help the human being. And then as far as the smaller players, what would they do? And I'll speak again to modular components. Taking bite sizes, cost, budgets, capital, wherever it's coming from, is likely finite and is very carefully calculated. So be pragmatic in what your approach is. Use some of the off-the-shelf solutions out there. AbaData as an example, but there are cloud services and a lot of agents out there that are providing this service. They have a significant backbone that can bear a lot of the burden that you don't need to take on yourself.
Yeah, I would just further on to Gary's comment there of cost sharing with others. Doing it yourself is a great way to go if you have the team to support it long term and the budget to support it, because you can burn credits incredibly fast without even realizing what's happening. Definitely, going to a third-party provider, and I work for one, so I probably sound a bit like a salesman, but it's just a safe way to go. I think it distributes the risk among all of the participants, as opposed to taking all that risk on yourself as an organization. I can talk a little bit about some of the wins we've had in AbaData. May not be exactly relevant, but in software development world, AI is a game changer as far as the productivity that you're able to draw from a software developer. It just increases it by, I don't even know what the factor would be, but it's significant for sure. And I think that would extend to tasks like data entry and data proofing and that type of role as well. I think there'd be a lot of realized productivity enhancements on the AA side. We also had a neat win just the other week, and Matt's, I'm looking at him there, he's sitting at the table. We had some paper forms that somebody had received from a vendor and wanted it in their digital field ops platform. And we were able to spin up, I shouldn't say we, Matt was able to spin up a model that actually recognized what was happening on the paper form, convert that into digital, store it in the database as if it had been created through our field ops tool. So I don't know, that's a super simple and really easy example, but it also shows the power of what's possible, I think, in a short amount of time.
Very cool. And so next topic we're going to be chatting about is around operational intelligence and field transformation. So in field operations, it's traditionally been a little bit slower sometimes to adopt, kind of cutting edge technology. What are the opportunities? I mean, we just had the last discussion was around, what AbaData is working on over the next, 12 months or so. What are the big opportunities that are on the horizon over the next, 2-3 years for what people should be looking for from, where to make an investment in this space?
Go ahead.
I'm going to have a hard time answering that in the next 2 or 3 years. I think, just dialing in where we're at now, I guess just keep improving what we're doing now to make sure that our operations are as efficient as possible. We've been doing this for at least 10 years at Ember, and I would say we're not perfect. There's lots of little bits and pieces to tune up and get more perfect. Ultimately, I guess I would use an analogy to Amazon. It's amazing that I can sit at my computer and click a mouse and have a package delivered to my house the next day. I feel like that could be something that this industry could work towards, where we know exactly what we need to do, how efficient can we execute on that work. So if we know the tank inspection that need to be done, we know the vessel inspection that need to be done, then just make sure that it's as efficient as possible. I hope the day is gone where Ember goes to inspect the vessels out of service. I think we're past those days, but if we can dial that in even further, that'd be great.
I'll speak to the one that's kind of been festering over the years, and I think we're really starting to see it surface in the IoT space, and I'll just speak to edge devices. There was, again, a lot of false starts around the edge. Consortiums were put together trying to generate ecosystems to apply apps and all these things, and several false starts, a lot of energy, a lot of good ideas. I think financing and capital dollars became a constraint, but now that there is truly a sense of urgency to get into this space, the data centers are coming, it's going to be able to support the power consumption. The edge device is really starting to take off in a true ecosystem case, and working with a few operators in the lower 48 right now, they're really starting to realize the benefit of, one, an edge strategy, and then building it from a phased approach. This is your modular component that you can really start basic and grow, and it's almost, I wouldn't say it's limitless, but it's definitely going to allow them to understand what's possible in iterations and not be limited on capacity and memory and all those things, and the strategy of what needs to be on site versus what's in the cloud. It's really become a more and more mature environment that folks are starting to really support and buy into.
And probably echo what Gary said there too. I think IoT devices, as of today and previously, are simply ways of collecting data that you still need to consume and you still need to interpret. I think going forward in the next 3 years, they become a lot more smart than that. They start telling you what's wrong as opposed to telling you what's currently happening, and you get advanced warning on potential problems and that type of thing. So rather than just have dumb sensors out there, we're gonna start to have some real value added, almost digital employees that don't really cost anything out on site at all times.
And we're getting kind of now to the last topic before we open it up to the crowd for some questions as well. It's like talking about the future. What gets you excited about kind of what you're working on and what you think the technology that could deliver over the next little bit? We talked about just kind of some data, more process like returns, but what makes you up going, wow, that's cool. I can't wait until people can see the value from that part of what we're working on. Kurtis, you've gone over that. Why don't we start with you as to what gets you really excited about what's on the horizon?
Yeah, I guess probably what gets me the most excited is looking at what's going to be possible for people tasks for people to perform once all of that meaningless, valueless work is taken care of by an AI agent. So all of a sudden, you've got a say, well, I'll use software developers because that's what I'm familiar with. But you've got a software developer who's spending 75% of their time copy pasting code and changing some values in it. There's no reason a software developer has to do that anymore. You can apply an AI agent to do that. Now you've freed up and 75% of your employees' day, which is really exciting to see what people are going to be capable of once that burden has been removed from sort of their mind. And it's a lot more open to creativeness and developing as opposed to just menial labor.
I'll speak to the. I guess we're past the hype now. I think you said that earlier. We're past the hype. There's things that are really tangible and real out there that's getting a lot of people excited because there's true case studies. There's not all of these what ifs and imagine if we can do these magical things, and because we are seeing those empirical results, it's starting to generate a lot more excitement than resistance, and I think that part of it really excites me in the sense that we're really at a takeoff point to not only be able to see results from entity to entity, organization, corporation to corporation, but also the knowledge sharing, the best practices. Think about what a conference or a seminar like this will look like in 2 to 3 years, and the excitement of real world examples that we're just on the cusp of now is what excites me.
And I'd say what excites me is getting all departments at a company like Ember on site and just totally invested in this idea. I think our production data is there, our asset and work management data is there, our accounting data is getting there, but our land department's lagging, and safety's kind of partway there, but I think we can do a ton of work on the safety side. What would excite me is if you had all those departments that are able to let them work in silos because they have a unique workflow, unique set of data, but then using all this analytics to tie it all together so that you have a company that's just dialed right in for efficiency. Your problems or your issues are presented to you that you can deal with, but you also see that the things that are working very efficiently. So just getting all those departments fully invested in the concept of analytics and AI.
Really cool. I'm adding one of my own onto this one. So in my world, in the product development side, it's like right now there's a huge amount of work. To your point, like the coder who has to go through copy paste stuff, like helping people just automatically have a regulatory roadmap, what needs to be done, what permits are required, what approvals are needed, what is the sentiment on the ground in that municipality. How does it impact First Nation communities around there? And automatically getting a report so they can assess, 10 projects that are on their table, where should they be prioritizing their time? Like that type of work right now is, heavily labor intensive, repeatable work that AI is really good at. So like giving people that flexibility so they can really start to see value is kind of what gets me excited as well. So thank you so much to our panelists so far. We're going to see, we do have a few more questions that we can go through as well up here, but we wanted to open it up to the group. I know we are the last thing between you and the door, so we really want to make sure you get value out of our time as well. So if there's any questions from the crowd, we'd like to open it up for a few questions before we call it a day.
Before you go there, just on this one again, the other piece of this I think that is really fundamental in where we're at for digitization is up until the last couple of years, you look at your data set, your unstructured data or your poor data quality, and it was always easy just to go back to paper and pen. And now I think we're seeing a mindset shift to say there's a reason why we're going to invest in this. We know what the future now holds, and for that matter, there's almost a line item at everyone's capital ledger that says we're going to invest in this, and we need to make sure we prepare for it from a financial perspective, rather than it's the last thing we're going to do. It almost seems like a need to or a nice to have, and now it's just I would say it's a need to have.
That's actually a really good point. Like, let's build on that. Like, from a capital budget, Simon, if somebody came, like, what do you need to do to justify to the rest of the executive team? Let's say someone has an ambitious AI project. How do you get that capital budget?
It's pretty easy at Ember because we have so many analogies that they're working in-house. So if I'll pick on our land department because they're the ones that are further behind, but if they came and said, we can build a chatbot to talk to our thousands and thousands of surface leases or mineral leases, you'd have to justify it with the efficiency of it, and that likely means a reduction in headcount, but just a far more efficient department, and the integration with other departments as well. I guess one example I would pull up that's recent that we just kind of implemented is how to talk our production system to our land system, so we know when we might have an expiry on the horizon, and we can deal with it way ahead of time, far more proactive than when there's 15 days left before well hasn't been producing, and there's 15 days before we reduce the lease. So just trying to get that thing dialed in so you're far more efficient. So protecting the downside is an easy way to justify it, but then also just a more efficient department is the other easy way.
Perfect. Any questions from the audience?
Question. IP and data security. What do we need in Canada to help sort of secure the gates and ensure that this hard work isn't being stolen or manipulated by outside interests that may not have our ambitions at heart?
So just for the rest of the audience, IP and data, how do we make sure, in Canada, do we protect that IP and make sure it's not stolen? Kind of a sovereign AI type strategy, a sovereign data strategy. How does that impact your guys' day-to-day? Kurtis? I can jump in on this, but in our world,
go for it.
Like in our world, because we're working with major utilities, major power generators, they're looking at developing out sensitive projects that they're working on that may not be publicly available yet. That's what they're doing. So we actually have to go through a very rigorous security review, make sure that the data is hosted in Canada, there's no training happening with the models. And that would be kind of like base level table stakes, like this is how we have to handle security. As we're scoping out now, working with some few different government bodies or regulators, and some of them may want to actually go like fully hosted in their own world with an open source model, like high security levels, in order to make sure that nothing has any risk of leaking out anyway. So, and you also have to go through like your SOC compliance and your ISO compliance, and there's a whole bunch of different audit processes you have to go through to justify to your clients that you're not going to risk their data set. So it's a very real, particularly anything touching AI, like the data world is highly sensitive. I'm sure AbaData goes through similar processes as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess my question back was going to be, does it need to be a governmental decision, or is it up to each individual business to ensure their own security and data integrity? And that's a question that honestly I don't know the answer to. I know for us, we take that on ourselves, as opposed to waiting for legislation. How effective the legislation is going to be when it's a foreign entity that's potentially causing mischief. I don't know what that would look like either, but great question.
Any other questions?
I'm just curious to know what are some of the biggest risks of using AI in the industry?
First one that jumps to my mind, I'm going to take it because it's a softball, is validation of results. Definitely, I think we've all probably, if we haven't seen it ourselves, we've seen a meme on it or some type of video that shows a hallucination from an AI agent. That's what comes top of my mind for sure.
I was going to jump into the safety answer. Is in my mind, if you're going to apply AI to a safety conversation, I would be very careful. I would avoid that personally. I would not want that at Ember at all. It probably can play a role. For example, like, is it safe to enter this tank? Have AI go tell you if it's safe or not? I don't think that's a good idea. That would be a huge risk to me.
And I think some of our thinking on that topic is like, how do we actually have human sign off faster? So like, should it go into this tank and then have a human review before the AI automatically dumps it into the tank? But maybe it can help them figure out, a short selection that doesn't have these characteristics, and they can look at it through a broader safety lens. And we're looking at it that way at ours. It's like, how do we help them validate responses, validate outputs rapidly? And there's also agentic tools that can help you with validation. And work people through a very detailed, you could be a 100-page report, and I'll work them through it, 50% faster than a manual review. That's right. But it has to be human sign off on a lot of this stuff, and particularly in the energy industry.
And I would not want AI to try to decipher those characteristics the first sign off. To me, that has to be a human that thinks that through.
I think it gets into a trust layer. So right now, early days, there's a lot of autonomous recommendations, like you mentioned earlier, that if allowed, could actually make an adjustment. Say, I'll just use a basic case at a control valve on a well, or ramping up or ramping down a VFD or something like that. Right now, from what I'm seeing, the recommendations are coming through, but there's still a manual approval just from a trust perspective. Now, as you gain that trust, as you start to understand that it is recommending what you would do as a human being, sitting there 24 hours a day, and the measures that you would take, you may give it a little bit more autonomy to decide. You might still want to be informed, but it could still be very much in a controlled space.
Any other questions? Oh, there's one back.
I'm curious if you foresee a change in jobs and the job market because of the influence of AI, or have you already seen some influence on the job market, job numbers?
So not personally, but I'll tell a story. My youngest son is just finishing his second year at SAIT for UI and UX, and he's done some other things from an IT perspective. And in the year and a half that he's been there, he's already seen the job market that he was trying to get into erode because of some of these technologies and some of these features. So now he's sitting there having a bit of a look in the mirror conversation, saying, I have to go get more training, I have to become more skilled in order to make myself more marketable. So it's happened in a very short period of time from his lens. It was an interesting, we just had this conversation yesterday.
I heard at the conference earlier this year a statement that AI is not going to replace your job, but somebody who can leverage AI will. And I think I agree with that. So I wondered in the news recently, I saw Conoco was doing a massive layoff, and same with Imperial, I believe. It just sort of felt like that had a lot to do with digitization and just doing things more efficiently, therefore needing less people. My assumption when I hear those news stories is that they're keeping the people that can really leverage this technology and do 3 times the amount of work that you can do without it.
Yeah, I agree. I think people are going, or AI is going to help people be more efficient, which will require less people to do the current amount of work that's being done. That helps us as opposed to looking at reducing staff. We really struggle to hire, and I think the only way we can really increase productivity to meet our sort of roadmap goals is to become more efficient with the resources that we currently have. So I choose to look at it that way. I also am a bit of an optimist maybe, and I still feel like there's something about a human in a position that just isn't going to be replaced by an AI or a bot or an agent. There's an intangible part of being, I think, that we still, and hopefully never do, honestly, replace with technology.
And just to add on to this conversation, I also think it's a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs. Like if I was a young person, that's trying to find their way in the world, like entrepreneurship right now is like a huge opportunity because what you can build with a team of 5 or 10 people, even 3 to 5 years ago would have taken 50. So it's just, if you have a really ambitious young group of folks that understand how to leverage these tools and deliver outsized outputs from them, there's a huge opportunity for young entrepreneurs right now.
And I think having a mix of skills is very important as well. So having somebody who's super great at the digital side and storing data and managing data, but has no idea why they're doing it, is not very effective. And the flip side of somebody who's been doing the same thing for 40 years on a piece of paper or in a spreadsheet, who has no idea how to leverage the digital tools, is also not effective. So to try to cross skill those, I guess, and train the 40-year-old guy to be able to use these tools, or vice versa, can be very, very effective.
Maybe we'll do 2 more questions if there's 2 more questions from the audience.
Where do companies like AbaData and others see the possibility of bridging a bit more of a gap between our First Nations people and understanding how the history of data that you now have available to you can help increase their comfort level and understanding how we want to move forward with the future pipelines that we want to get built in a very quick time period in the future. I see you have so much useful data, particularly what's demonstrated today on the corrosion with pipelines, that I would love to see more of that shared with our First Nations conferences and so forth. Where do you see that moving forward in the immediate future, if possible?
I would suggest when I'm dealing with all this data that you're dealing with facts. As long as you have a bit of a verification of your data, you're dealing with facts, which just creates transparency. So I don't have a good answer for how to communicate that out to people, but if we can figure that side out, the data and all this analytic work will provide those facts to people. The opposite of that would be listening to Donald Trump speak. So just getting fed lies, they're lies, but if you can supplement that with actual factual data, it definitely helps that communication.
I'll just maybe add on top of this from our lens, the way that we've looked at it in our company is that there's actually a lack of capacity in many First Nation communities to actually assess the projects that are being brought to them. They're sometimes being pitched, 10 new projects a month that, how they have to duty consult, maybe even like economic participation, and actually allowing them to review what's real, what's fake, what are real tangible ones that they should be investing their time into. I think this is where some AI tools could enhance the capacity, probably with some trusted partners that can help advise them, because there's a lot of information is historical and very sensitive. So you could theoretically, if there's an immense amount of trust built with the First Nation community, bring in and segregate into a very secure world, what is important that they view projects through, and then layer that onto an analysis of that project that allows them to do their due diligence efficiently. I think that would be probably an area where a huge amount of value can be created quickly with tools today. Maybe one last question, if there's one in the audience.
Do you foresee the implementation of AI increasing productivity more than you do taking away jobs? I can hear everyone concerned around jobs, no, it's going to take away our jobs. Well, my purview, you saw that with the internet too, and it's only just increased our desire for productivity in every aspect of our life. So is that what's going to happen here? Are we too focused on the job market and what it's going to do in that area, or we should be really focused on productivity that we're providing?
Yeah, great question. I spoke to this earlier this morning around intelligent operations and job loss and so on and so forth. My philosophy has always been not necessarily the case, especially in the oil and gas industry. I would focus more on repurposing their time for more valuable added work, thinking about operation or management by exception. You still need folks in the industry to be able to go and do the more meaningful work. I think what we're going to see, and we're already seeing it, is, as Kurtis mentioned, maybe not meaningless work, but tedious work that's necessary. It's either a compliance issue or it's something that's an obligatory type of task or initiative, taking that away and maybe a simple verification while that individual is trained and upskilled to truly work in an intelligent, modern operation from an operation by exception perspective. It does a couple things. Not only will it improve efficiency, I think their workload will go down, which means from fit for duty and mind on task perspective, there's a significant upside from a safety component, risk and hazard exposure reduction could be really significant, and we've seen it already before AI was even here, deploying intelligent operations. Now we're going to see either equal or greater returns from that perspective.
One other thing that I would add on top of this is that folks are looking at right now just through kind of a ChatGPT interface and the AI that's capable there, where I think people haven't fully reconciled where disruption could happen is actually more on the robotics side. Probably in the next year to 2 years, you're going to see the Tesla robots actually just deployed out into market. I think the disruption that comes at that point in time, I think, could become more significant depending on the capabilities of some of these robotic tools, and they're using the AI brains to put into them to make sure that they're smarter. So I think it's early innings as to what this is going to look like from a labor and workforce perspective. That being said, it's a huge opportunity as well from an innovation standpoint and from an entrepreneurial standpoint as to what you can build in today's world. So I think that you're going to see some legacy companies that struggle to adapt, and I think you're going to see new companies become the next Google. I do think that the human innovation is always going to be at the forefront of all this. I don't think that you'll be displaced by robotics, but companies can be very different. Like if you look in professional services from law firms to consulting and advisory firms, I think how they deliver what used to be power by the hour, I think a lot of that changes rapidly, and I think certain things that can be automated probably far more safer, particularly as you look at field work. If a robot can do it, as from a safety compliance perspective, as efficiently and safer, then that's perfect. People are starting to muse about deep underground mines where it's not safe for humans to go down. You can put robotics down, so things like that. All right, so again, I guess how much is anybody wrapping up the full day, or are we wrapping it up? Okay, somebody's wrapping it up, so thank you so much for this panel, and thank you for all the engagement today, so appreciate it.
And just like that, the day has come to an end. As I scroll through my notes here, on behalf of the entire AbaData team, thank you for your energy, thank you for your ideas, and for spending the day with us. Thank you as well to all of our sponsors, our premier sponsor, Altilis. I hope that some of you engaged and just had a chance to speak with some of those sponsors that were out in the foyer. Special thank you to our AI and digitization panel for wrapping us up with these valuable insights. Please join me one last time recognizing Doug Schweitzer, Gary Krushell, Simon Rivard, and Kurtis. Also, a huge thank you to our event staff, our sound technician, our servers, and our volunteers who helped everything run smoothly behind the scenes. And finally, thank you to you, our users, who've joined the conversation and are joining us on this journey. Last but not least, please take a moment to scan the QR code on the screen to complete our short survey. We'd love to hear your feedback. It only takes a few minutes and helps us make future conferences even better. Thank you again. Safe travels, everyone. We will see you next time.